Grief can be a bridge between each other, between us and our dead. We will not forget them, and we will not be forgotten.
We talk about how there's this taboo about death and dying and grief and bereavement, but the reality is when you provide people with the opportunity to reflect and talk and learn and think about these subjects, there's a huge amount of interest there. The aim of Grief Weston was to bring grief out into the open, encourage people to maybe be a little bit more open in how they talk about their feelings around grief and loss, and provide opportunities for people to learn and talk about grief and to engage with it in lots of different ways.
Light and shining.
I think it's finding what works for you as an individual, and for me it's art and it's creative things. For someone else it might be something different.
We had community arts events which were all about bringing people together and giving people creative opportunities to express their emotions and to connect with other people.
We don't all use words, so to be able to make something and express something in a different way, I think is a nice outlet for people.
It helped me deal with some grief of a loss of my dad in November last year, which brought up some grief for the loss of my twin sister when I was born. It's been very therapeutic. What I've been looking for, something to honour their lives.
It's something that starts the conversation, and then usually I find you don't end up needing that, you then carry on the conversation as normal, but it's that kind of easier stepping into talking about grief rather than going straight into it, because we're not used to that.
As a society, we're not that good at dealing with grief. We don't talk about it openly, and so people can end up struggling on their own.
Every flower in the garden represents somebody or something which has been lost. It's given some people the opportunity to talk about grief and to open up about their loss. We've had some people who've never had that opportunity before. So it's been a healing process for some people.
When someone does experience a bereavement, they can be really surprised at just the extent of their emotions and the depth of their emotion. It can have an impact on your self-esteem, it can change the way you feel about yourself, it can change the way you feel about your life. It can really be transformative. Our music events were really important, kind of bringing people in and showing people that through music you can get in touch with your emotions in a different way.
I've certainly found that I've had personal grief in my life, and music's always been really important for me to be able to just sit back and hold the moment and allow myself the space to grieve. Sometimes you don't have the words to grieve, but music is it's like a tap going on that suddenly you switch the tap on and you can cry and grieve properly.
You can feel really out there and alone, and that the world you knew is just collapsed. I think it's really important in those times to feel connected to other people who have felt the same as you. It's okay to be emotional, to be sad, and then also to be able to laugh at the darker sides of life.
We can come and shake out our grief together, share some joy and love. I think there's something really personal about coming and sharing something in a group space, but also there's a joy in kind of sharing an experience as a collective, and I think that's really special.
It brings lots of people together in the community. People have raised issues around grief, so they've talked about whether they've experienced suicide or loss of sort of relatives. People have been very supportive to each other.
What helps people differs from one person to another. We were really keen that the festival reflected that diversity.
You can be buried in a giant cigar, ballet shoe, home decorated cardboard, or willow.
I think people don't realise how many possibilities there are around death and dying, that there really aren't that many rules and regulations. But the only way that people can benefit from this is if they find out about it before they need it. Because the trouble is that when a death occurred, there's so much upset and agitation and so much to do that really you're not in a position to take on new ideas or new possibilities.
I just wondered about your opinions on death on TV. We can switch Channel 4 and we can see a baby being born like that. We can't switch the telly on and see death. And it still strikes me that that's odd.
The thought of embracing death makes us feel that we're giving up hope on life, and that therein lies the problem. So I suspect that's in the producers' minds as well, except for the odd exceptions, and there are some extraordinary filmic exceptions.
Basically, I went in the morning expecting to see Eddie because I was leaving early, and he was dead. So I then had to deal with that, just to put it mildly. So there are all sorts of things that I do, one of which is doing. So I think I talk about it in the book, the doing cure, that, you know, it's not a bad thing.
So the emotions that come up in grief, that is something which is shared. And so even if the experience of grief itself is unique, our human response to it has similarities for everybody.
So I'm a believer in the doing cure, I'm a believer in the writing cure, obviously, talking, storytelling, and all sorts of physical things, walking and stretching and all that sort of stuff. And many of those things are self-protective. But also, you can't bury it either. You have to engage with this thing.
We brought together people from the community across Weston, people working for voluntary and community organisations and health and social care, plus academics from the University of Bristol, to talk about the assets and strengths in Weston, as well as what we can all do to improve things.
Without grief, there is no joy, no connection, no freedom from the isolation of our individuality. Without loss, we pass through life empty-handed, not shedding, but not receiving either. We grieve, not just because we shed so much as we move through this life, but because we are connected to each other through threads of the heart. We are each other.